Hey guys, welcome to another voiceover tutorial. My name is Akini-chan, and for this term's voiceover, I will be doing a more male pinup focused piece, and I will be doing a bit of commentary as I paint as usual. So yeah, let's get started. I've already got the sketch down, and I did try out some basic color just to see what fits the piece. So I wanted to draw like a sexy male pinup character. So the character I wanted to draw was Bakugo from My Hero Academia, and I wanted him to be like laying on the bed. It's a little bit of it does have a bit of yaoi feel to it. So yeah, that is the goal that I'm gonna aim for this piece. And I hope you guys enjoy. I know I do a lot of female focused pieces, so this term I'm gonna switch it up a bit. So yeah, let's get started. I'm going to discard this, discard this layer later. This layer is only there for the purpose of knowing what color I want to put, and sometimes even I would change that up later on. So yeah, I already did the sketch, and I already created the folders for them, so it would be a little easier to work with. As always, actually, you know what, this time I'm gonna start off, gonna try something new, and instead of putting everything on different layers, I'm going to just paint everything in one layer. Sometimes I do this because if the pose is pretty straightforward like this, there's not a lot of overlapping with this pose except for the legs and maybe the shirt. Something that doesn't have like the arms in front of the character, stuff like that, I feel that painting everything on one layer and then cutting each element separately afterwards would be might be a bit faster. Now sometimes, you know, as I paint, I would get really unsure of where it's going, and at that point I would start cutting different elements and putting them in separate layers already. So it really depends, and it really just depends on the feel of the piece. If you feel like it's going in the right direction, then you don't really have to be all anal about it, like usually I am. That's why a lot of I always like put different elements of the character on separate layers, because I know that I'm gonna be very fussy later on. So yeah, in the meantime, using the lovely lasso tool, select and fill in just to block in our character. Now I wanted to paint Deku in the foreground, but not sure yet. I might even not have him in there later on, but we will see. And of course I can just do a very fast kind of color blocking for his silhouette, just so we get a feel of the composition. So we have a pretty good area covered, which is what I like usually. I am very I don't like a lot of empty spaces, so I usually tend to try to fill them up. But of course, different artists prefer different things, and I've seen artists, you know, having more empty spaces, but it ends up working out for them because that's their style. Me, I'm a little bit of a clutter. I like clutter. I like detail, I like clutter, so that's why I do always try to add more detail in there. Anyways, so for the background, I had the idea of him laying on white sheets, still undetermined because I might change my mind later. So for now, I will just do a very basic, if the sheets are white, I'm gonna start off with a grayish blue color for the shadow. But I will start out by kind of already shading the bed sheets Actually, this pose was inspired by a post that I've seen in a yaoi book that, you know, I read a lot of yaoi, so I get a lot of ideas, if you know what I mean. So it's time to use some of those ideas. And because I no longer really, I kind of unleashed my no restrictions on NSFW. Well, before I used to care a bit more on what people say, but now I don't really care as much. I'm more into trying to improve my skill as a NSF artist, so I just want to like go all out. And by going all out, I feel like you can learn more. Before there was I put a bit of restriction on myself beforehand, but now I decided to not care too much about the negativity of it, so just gonna try my best, see where it goes. And I'm glad that a lot of you guys are supportive, and that just tells me that I have to keep going, pursue my goals pretty much, and I want to create the best eye candy that I can for you guys. So yeah, I used the combination. Sorry, I wasn't really talking while I did the background, but what I did was pretty much I used a combination of airbrush and solid round brush to create soft blending slash like sharper details with the solid round brush like this, and I pretty much blend together. I'm trying to determine where the lighting and the shadow is. So right now what I have in mind is shadow here and highlight here. So hopefully I do a good job of kind of demonstrating that. But first, you know what? I will be using this. I'm just gonna copy paste this in there. So this is what I'm gonna start off with. And I'm gonna go ahead and fill in the color. So pretty much this face is just trying to kind of color in the areas and kind of establishing what color you're gonna do and all that. Usually I'm very, very rough with it, so I'm not gonna pay too much attention to the cleanness of the lines or anything. I'm just going to plop down the color, and that's that. So yeah, kind of want him to. I know that in the anime he was wearing sort of like a formal wear, but I feel like it looks better with a white dress shirt and then black, the classic black tux look, but we will see. I really want to make this like, I want to please my fangirls. I want to please them. I'm channeling my inner fangirl to make this as appealing to my kind as much as possible. Okay, I'm gonna actually put a bit of the skin tone inside the shadow of the drape. Sometimes I like to do that just to kind of balance out the color. It's good to always sort of balance out cool tones with a bit of warm tone and vice versa. A lot of times when it comes to skin tones, it is majority warm tone, you know, unless you're painting a character with blue skin, but usually it tends to be more warm tone, and so always adding a bit of gray or blue in there will help the skin look a bit more realistic, because realistically we do have a lot of those tones in our skin. But yeah, I just kind of played around with the blanket. Probably not my final color choice because I'm probably gonna change it up. Actually, you know what? Maybe like this. Okay, now I will go ahead and see what I can do here. So I want to do this. So what I'm doing is using the lasso tool now to help me determine the rough placement of the shadow on the character. So I want this whole area of the character to be in shadow, to kind of follow along the same line of shadow as the blanket beneath him. So we're gonna try to do that, and hopefully it come through. And of course, if it doesn't, I'm gonna keep editing until it makes sense. So I'm just gonna start by just kind of making that whole area dark, and then I can go back in now since I already have the general shadow shade of the shadow. I'll just go ahead and just start by adding that in, and I probably need a darker color there, so I'm gonna go for a kind of a bluish, grayish color for the clothes. And I'm gonna go ahead and start by adding in some wrinkles. Also, I wanna make it feel like, you know, the shirt is super tight as always on all my characters. No matter what, you can't escape from my tight clothes that I paint. No matter what. Okay. Oh, forgot, I must indicate a bit of shadow to kind of, so that this makes a bit more sense. I want the arm, the fabric to wrap around the arm a bit. Sorry, I couldn't find the words for that. Okay, now into the shadow. So I will try to add a bit of shadow inside the shadow. I'm gonna be using this warmish, actually maybe not that color, maybe a little more dull. So I'm gonna use a slightly darker shade to kind of start shading inside the first layer of shadow. I'm gonna be putting a bit of it on the shoulder, and then I'm gonna start by shading the face. So for the face, I'm gonna be using one of my favorite shadow highlight. So having the highlight on the bottom, shadow on the top. I do like painting this style in particular. I just find it appeals, it matches my style a lot, so I always try to do it if I can. If not, then I try something else. So with that, you gotta make sure all the shadow is on top and all the highlights on the bottom. As you can see, we have a strong highlight here, so therefore this highlight is casting a bit of highlight on the chin, and every other element that's sticking out, that is facing the highlight down here. So we gotta keep the shadow on top, highlight on the bottom. So yes, and I would just kind of just keep stacking highlights like this and shadow like this, and then as we go along, we will be lowering the opacity of the sketch. That way it's gonna slowly turn into a painted piece, which is the final goal that we are trying to achieve. Okay, I should probably work on the pants a little, so I'm gonna go ahead and use a bit of the skin tone, putting in the pants, and I'm gonna keep it dark and simple. Let's add some pockets. and then I'm going to slightly line that. And so I'm going to go ahead and paint that. Have a bit of shadow there. Alright. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start by applying a bit of shadow on the chest, and just gonna basically start just refining a bit. Also, I can rotate it just slightly to be able to have an easier time painting this in a better direction. I'm going to put a bit of the grayish tone into the skin tone, and I'm gonna lower that a bit more, and I'm gonna start by kind of using the lasso tool to help me contour and blend stuff out. Just go ahead, use a slightly darker color so that I can kind of start by adding another layer of shadow. I'm just gonna keep layering this on. I'm gonna try to keep a bit of the highlight towards the bottom area, and then have shadow, highlight, and shadow theme going on, while this part is gonna be in a lot of highlight. I want this, yes, I want this to be very exaggerated. I'm going to auto contrast this a bit, and then I'm going to use the multiply, and I'm going to kind of darken some of these areas up. I'm using a cooler tone for this. That's weird. Oh, that's why. Making sure it's airbrush mode, I'm gonna use a cooler shadow color to really build up that shadow, like that. I'm gonna go ahead, select the silhouette of the leg, and I'm going to add a tiny bit of highlight right there where the highlight is supposed to be. And I'm gonna go ahead, select that orange part real quick, which is gonna be the inside of the jacket. So I'm just going to quickly do some rough shading, and then the outside of the jacket. I'm going to also bring in a bit of that shadow into that area, and I'm going to kind of gradually kind of shade this. Add a little bit of shadow there. I'm going to select this color right here because it's brighter. I'm going to continue on the highlight over here a bit. I'm going to try to kind of do what I see here to kind of match the folds of the bed a bit more. And I'm going to go ahead, zoom in, work on the pec here a bit so it's not lacking too much detail. At the same time, I'm just going to continue shading the clothing. It's gonna have a lot of folds because it's all scrunched up together. I'm gonna try to make sure that these areas are the tension points where the lines converge. So taking a darker tone, and I'm just going to go ahead and draw on the tension lines where I think they are. Same with the other side. And I'm going to go ahead, use a bit of the lasso tool, do a little shape here, which looks like a little bit of the shirt is flipped over. I'm going to go ahead, select a darker color to make sure that this part stands out. Also here on the stomach too, I have to kind of go ahead and line where the anatomy is going to be. So I'm going to use a dark color to help me determine. I want him to kind of twist a little, and we can kind of pretend to paint a bit of that anatomy onto the shirt as well. Like that. Something like that. That means the chest needs to be a little bit more tilted a bit more. So I'm gonna go ahead, add a bit more shadow here. And at the same time, take the highlight and add that highlight. Also taking the code, Control C, copy, Control Shift V to paste in place so that I can move the code a bit. Keep going, add some more close ripples. Alright, sorry guys, I'm back. I'm gonna continue to kind of refine and start adding in some more detail as I go along. I'm trying to also kind of making sure that it's lined correctly and kind of trying to make sure the shirt contours the anatomy a bit better. So I'm using a line to do that. I'm just gonna draw the nipple because that's actually a good landmark. That's coming across. I feel like I should move this up a bit. Clean up the shirt here and use the lasso tool to help me do this quick. I think trial and error sometimes. Like this. This part, I think I might have to play around with this a bit. So what I'm going to do is select this whole part of the copy paste, and then I'm going to curve a little. Keep refining, fresh cleaning stuff up. Alright. I think this pose is slightly better, so I'm gonna go ahead and keep that. Also, I'm not so sure about the blanket. I feel like it needs to be a bit darker. The reason being it matches closer to his shirt, so I didn't really like that. I'm just going to go for like an open zipper. And maybe on these, I guess. Just kind of looking back and forth. Go ahead on the face. I'm gonna select the line art and then kind of just paste it onto the color blocking, and I'm gonna start to shade it a bit. So I'm gonna start by painting in some highlight on the bottom of the hair. Just basically keeping in mind that highlight on the bottom, shadow on top, that format pretty much, and then just keep refining and whatnot using the lasso tool. Outline the structure of the face, apply some shadow beneath it. Then I'm going to use a darker color so that I can kind of line the ear and how I'm going to draw it. So normally, usually shape it like that. And I outline the ear first. Then I will go in and add the shadows, highlight, and whatnot. The lasso tool, I'm going to isolate the nose bridge, adding on a darker shadow on the nose. Gently extend the highlight onto all the way there. And I'm going to add a little bit of grayish onto the whites of the eyes. And then blend in that eyelid and making sure it's sort of darkish there, and then surround it by highlight, add a bit of highlight eye bags are. Gently blend that in. Some nostril shadow. And dark on the lips. A slightly warmer tone for the lips. I'm going to aim for a slightly pinker tone and making sure it's dark. We'll even it out later so it doesn't look like there's lipstick on. I'm going to, after, start by creating another layer. I'm going to start by adding in some cool tones. And darker tones. Cool and darker tones. I want a variety of color tones on the face, not just warm tones, because if I only have warm tones, I'm not going to have the same realistic fleshy feel of the skin that I want to achieve. In order to achieve that effect, you must add various tone to the skin. So maybe a bit of greenish color, even just very, very slightly in certain parts. Let's see. I'm just looking back at the preview and then back here. And I'm just trying to make sure everything is lining up and making sense. I might have to adjust some of the facial features. But yeah, so I'll just quickly do the basic facial feature colors. And probably also see if I can kind of extend the hair out a bit. Cover the forehead a bit to make it look more routine. So I have to also look back and forth at the reference photo, because sometimes even though I know what he looks like, I need to have the reference picture right there to kind of look back and forth at. And it's going to refine a bit. Okay, let's do a step here. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to merge it down and auto contrast. And sometimes you can auto tone, which Photoshop will tell you what is the ideal tone to the composition. I'm just going to blend this in for fun. Actually, we should bring the tip down a bit. contrast on the pants. So even darker color. I'm going to select a yellow shade, and then I'm going to use it as a way to highlight the center and give a bit of sheen to the pants. I usually like to paint latex or shiny pants. I'm not sure if I will for him, but usually end up doing it because I feel like that latex texture is just more fun to paint. Maybe it won't go with the situation, we will see. Let me see if I can kind of do a little sleeve. I'm also going to select this part and darken it. Save. So also here, let's see if I can make sure this part is dark like that. And really just make it clear where the highlight is and where the shadow is. I'm just gonna add a bit of shadow there. Continue to refine. I'm gonna go ahead and actually add a little bit of highlight underneath some of these folds like this. The idea is to create a bit of low light on the clothing. Sometimes it will make the piece look softer. Sometimes you don't want that effect, but this is the time I wanted the effect. So also I kind of just tried that to see if it would work out, and I feel like it does work to an extent to what I want, so I'm just gonna keep it. So it's a lot of experimenting, and I'm just gonna continue to refine the clothes. I'm using a combination of the airbrush and the solid round brush, and of course it's pretty much I'm doing like a mix. Actually no. Oh, okay. I guess I'm just using airbrush at this point. Sometimes I prefer a combination of airbrush and soft brush, airbrush and solid round brush, sorry. But it's always good to test it out and use a variety of hardness on your brush setting so that you can sculpt and blend at the same time. Just going to softly bring that down here. Okay. I'm just looking back and forth. Okay, now I'm gonna work on this part right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the flaps of the suit. I'm not gonna be super detailed at it. I wonder if I can get away with minimum detail. I will first go ahead and start doing a little bit of kind of soft highlight using airbrush, and I just select that part. I want to make sure that this flap will look like it's folded over the arm, and then have it sort of underneath that arm, like he's having his arm behind his back. is feeling like it's right underneath the jacket. So using airbrush, I'm gonna very softly blend in the shadow. And also I might add a bit of that skin tone as well. Deselect. Just going to extend some of these folds. And even use a bit of harsh shadow. Continue adding these wrinkles. Hopefully it makes sense. Hopefully. Select the skin tone of it and apply a bit of skin tone on the bottom area for each ripple highlight and blend that in. Select the flap and darken that so that we really make the distinction. And going on here, just going to fill that in. I'm actually going to include a little bit of fabric here, tucked into the armpit. Hopefully it translates well. Well, the idea is there, but I don't know if it's translating well. Maybe if I added a bit of highlight here. Nope, still not translating well. Well, I mean, maybe I can make it work later, but for now we'll just continue. As you can see, the idea is there. The execution, however, needs work. I'm gonna go ahead and continue to add some shadow here. Maybe that's what it needs, a bit of shadow. Actually, let me just make sure that it's straight and that it continues down. Also, add some more wrinkles to the shirt. We need to, at the same time, fix these areas. I'm just going to go ahead and refine and add some detail to the anatomy. I'm just gonna go ahead and use a darker color and start by adding additional muscle detail, just a little bit. I'm gonna see if I can tone it down a bit. I do get comments saying some of the character because usually when it comes to male character, make them beefy and female voluptuous, even though their design is not really, but that's just, I can't help it. It's like every time I draw someone, it always ends up looking like that. So, kind of trying to add a bit of anatomy. I want him to have like a little band here around his arm. And I'm gonna go ahead and really contour that clavicle. Have a bit of highlight there, and then gradually have the shadow softly blend into the chest area. And some more shadow. And just kind of gradually paint the shadow around the chest. Just kind of blend. And I'm just going to add a bit of definition underneath here. I'm gonna have to switch to a more solid brush now. I'm gonna use a second layer so that if I mess up, I can always go back. I'm gonna use a slightly dull color here. And use a bit of that yellowish tone. I'm gonna go ahead and use dissolve, use airbrush. Airbrush. There we go. And I'm just going to gradually add a bit of sheen. Hopefully it works, I don't know. Add a bit of sheen here too. And just all in all try to smooth that area using the lasso tool. I'm just gonna isolate specific areas to do that, and then going back to airbrush again, and just going to kind of tuck that nice pectoral muscle into the shirt, like the bra, pretty much. Clothing, just indicate a bit of that muscle. I like doing this especially for JoJo characters because, you know, people won't complain about JoJo characters having super tight clothing and exaggerated anatomy because it's sort of like that. So it's more fun that way. I can get away with a bit more that way too. Okay, going back to the clothes. that up. Actually, I might have to switch it up a bit. I'm going to include a little bit of bluish tone at the very edge in order to make it not feel too warm. Gotta balance it out. And also, while I'm at it, I'm just gonna clean up the shape of the tie. Satin texture to it. I'm trying to figure out how. I think I did like this. I have one tie like this, and then the other tie was underneath, I think. Let me just kind of try to make sure that it is following the guidelines of whatever's underneath. So this line, gonna have it a bit sharper, have it like that, and then smooth the shadow all the way down. I'm also gonna put a bit of it here to go with the okay. Trying to kind of make it conform to the the fabric underneath, so it might take a while to make it look a little flatter. Okay, I'm gonna add a bit more here and there. Delete. And it should be okay. Just going to select there real quick. Gonna go ahead and add a bit of highlight coming from the neck down below. Gradually blend that chin in. And I'm just gonna kind of follow the shadow highlight pattern and just kind of blend it upwards into the face. Extend that ground a bit. Blend in the eyelids a bit more. Also might need to actually, let me pull up a pic. Alright, I got a pic. Okay, well, I mean, looks pretty much like this. Except he has a frowny face at all times. So maybe I'm gonna bring down his eyebrows a bit more. Also gonna start adding a little bit of shadow beneath each hair strand. And maybe, I don't know, should I like not make him smile too much? Keep it like that. Gonna give him a bit of a chin. Doing this, softly blending the shadow in with the highlight. So this is what we have. I'm gonna softly blend the cheek and the side of the face in as well as underneath the hair too. Gonna go for a little bit of a dip. And just blend that down. Extend the highlight up. And then we're going to go ahead, work on that hair texture using lasso tool to select the shape, and then isolating that shape. And just gonna keep going for this batch of hair. Add a bit of highlight underneath. Add a bit of highlight underneath. Trying to make it look like his hair is sort of flat on the bed sheet. It's gonna take a while. Let me zoom in a bit more. Rotate that to the angle. And we'll have to go bit by bit to refine. Going to have to extend a bit of hair from there, extend it over a bit. Aim for that low lit highlight and a bit of shadow underneath each little batch of hair. And from this method, we are going to layer his hair, especially for anime style characters. It's gonna be a lot of layering because their hair doesn't. I try not to be too make the hair too organic looking. You need to put a bit of structure onto his hair. I guess for this area, I'm just gonna keep it dark for now. I think it kind of works like that. And I can have a bit of freedom, add a bit of hair sticking out. Let's see. And just gonna put a bit of loose strand of hair. I'm going to bring a bit of that hair strand energy all the way forward so that it's nice and even. There we go. Now it looks a bit more like him. Gonna rotate. I'm going to emphasize the dip here and also bring the shadow over a bit more so that we can add the highlight right on top. Really emphasize that change in highlight and shadow where the nose bridge starts. That way you get a really good impression of highlight coming from below and shadow from above. And then at the same time, refine the eyes a bit, and then the nose. And just kind of take your time to refine that nose. And the mouth as well. I'm just going to include a bit more highlight underneath that brow. Gonna add a bit of that blonde hair onto the eyebrows. And then just refine the hair a bit. Remember, shadow on top, highlight on the bottom. I'm going to add a bit of highlight here. Like that. I'm just gonna give it a bit of that hair texture. Lock it down and actually add a bit of highlight there. Okay, unlock. And we're gonna soften this part up. Just kind of extend the neck up like that, highlight up. Select this side of the neck so that we can blend that in. Bring that shadow down. Add highlight where the Adam's apple is, right under it, and then on top of it, shadow to emphasize the bump. And you can even select the tie and make sure to have that dark shadow where the tie is. I guess we can make the tie a little bit tight by adding a bit of highlight here and then shadow followed by a bit of shadow. Gonna clean this up a bit, delete. There we go. It's looking better already. Probably should paint a little bit of deco as well. Going back to the sketch. And just going to quickly do a quick silhouette for him, not too much. I'll probably refine it a bit later, but for now we're gonna have to do with the super blobby looking version of him. Okay, let's rotate this again. I'm gonna make another layer just in case, and then we're going to keep refining, and then once I'm happy with the amount of work I've done, I'm gonna merge it down again so that we can keep that one layer structure. Since this is a pretty, I feel like pretty linear pose, like not a lot of overlapping, I'm just gonna keep it one layer for efficiency. And also it looks cleaner unlike a lot of my other pieces. So actually, this is the following day. I took a break. Well, I went to sleep and then I came back. So yeah, there might be a change in my voice, so that's the reason why. Okay. Now it's gonna be a lot of refining and stuff like that. Also, sometimes, you know, if I get a little too frustrated with the piece, I would try my best to kind of work through it, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. In that case, I usually just try to take a break, go to sleep, and wake up the next day to look at it again. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. But usually I try to push through it, and then if it doesn't end up working out, usually I don't try too hard to make it work, because I know that if something I've been working on doesn't work, and if I create a new piece similar to it, it'll end up looking better. So usually that's what I do, and I feel like it's better to start a new piece than to try to make the old one work. And by doing so, I feel like it's the best way to sort of improve that way as well. So yeah, that was a random little thing there. As you can see, nothing much going on except just trying to refine the shirt. And we have it on a separate layer, so oftentimes I do toggle on and off just to get an idea of how the rendering process is going. And usually I try to pick off these areas where it's like super sharp, high contrast, super sharp. I try to soften it up by kind of shading it, add a little bit of border shadow just to make it not feel as abrupt. And that's usually what I do. And I pray that I end up looking good. A lot of it is pretty much just experimental. And then through experiments, I figured that it works best for what I'm looking for when I draw. And I just kind of keep going at it. And I use similar techniques. And that's how I guess you can say, learn. Is by doing this. Painting a lot usually helps too. So, but I know, I do know that some of you don't have that luxury of having the time to practice. However, I do think if you can even save 30 minutes of your day to just put in a bit of practice, whether that's just sketching on transit or doing a little Photoshop, I feel like that would help. And also practice with reference really helps improve as well, because just having that bit of guide will help you a lot and make you improve a lot faster. Something I learned back in school, actually. But yeah, just working on the sleeve right now. I'll do that later. Okay, so, oops. I'm gonna go ahead, select the silhouette of the shirt, and I'm gonna go ahead, select that color right there. Seems like a perfect fit for the shirt here. And I'm just going to contour it with the dark color so that it gives it a nice contoured, well, it won't feel as abrupt against the darkness of the clothing underneath. If I let it, I'll do it before and after for you guys. I feel like if I just leave it as it is, it would feel a little bit abrupt, in my opinion. Let me just go ahead and do that. So this is what I have. This is what I had before. As you can see, it's quite bright. Like here especially, if I just put a bit of shadow there, it will feel a bit more balanced and also blended into the environment. So sometimes, you know, sometimes leaving it like this could work. It's really up to you. Based on my, I guess you could call it artistic instinct, I feel like putting a bit of shadow at the borders would help it look better. And oftentimes I can't really explain it to you guys. It's just, it looks better to my eyes, and a lot of times I depend on that as well. So there's really no logic. Well, I guess there's a little bit of logic, because realistically, I guess maybe I retain some information from looking at a lot of objects and photos and stuff like that. But also to my eyes, it looks better this way. But the best solution that you can get with this type of fabric interaction is by using a reference. Since I don't really have a reference, sadly I couldn't find a, well, I'm sure there's a reference out there of a salaryman tied up, but I haven't found it, so I'm just using my imagination here. My imagination is telling me to paint the fabric in this way, and we're just gonna try doing that. So what I'm doing is creating a bit more wrinkles. I'm putting these areas in highlight. As you can see, no black border. Maybe I'm gonna put a little bit of it using the airbrush, using a dark color and the airbrush to help me here. And I selected this area so I can clean that up fast. I'm gonna add a bit of highlight here. I will try to see if I can do a little fabric flip here using the airbrush to very, very softly shade this part. And I will need to work on the pec over here a bit, so I'm gonna try to add a bit of shadow following through on that dark trim underneath his pec, and then just kind of follow through onto the shirt, because I'm trying to create a very uncomfortable situation for the 2D character. Jokes aside, I do like to emphasize anatomy for the most part, and this is how I get my fix. I need to release my inner fangirl, kind of just put all the characters in tight clothing. Yes, I'm making them suffer. It's funny how a lot of people have a problem and they always feel bad for the 2D character if artists make their character wear super tight clothing, saying how uncomfortable they must be. well, you know. It's eye candy. What can I say? There. Before, after. I can even go select a slightly brighter color. So this is our first correction here. Use another lighter color, and I'm going to just very subtly add a bit of that throughout the shirt. So as you can see, it looks very soft, but it does kind of help shape the anatomy just a bit while maintaining a soft look. I'm just going to also just contour that area in particular so I can make a very sharp shading here. Clean up that ab section, the clean ab section. Clean up the ab section. I'm gonna add a bit of shadow here, like that. Actually, okay, and continue bring that down. Just going to kind of clean that up. Add a bit of shadow where the clothes is, so that the shirt feels like it is casting shadow on the skin. Everything has a shadow and it's casted somewhere. So just gonna try to emphasize on that the best I can. I will be going back and forth with small details, like especially on clothing. A lot of detail I end up changing over time a lot, and I feel like wrinkles for clothing is best achieved with a smaller airbrush because it makes the shading soft, and especially on clothing I like to have soft shading. And by making the brush very small, even if you are on airbrush, it makes it look a little sharp, so you get a bit of sharpness and soft blending as well. Okay, let me see if I can add the button now. I probably should have done that before. I need to add a bit more volume to this right here, so I just created a bit more space for the button. Okay, now select that area. I'm gonna darken the pec here. As you can see, because I added that bit of texture, I'm going back in to kind of add a bit of shadow over it. That way it makes it a little, it varies it a bit, breaking it up a bit more. I'm gonna add a bit of highlight over here. There we go. Actually, I wonder if I should add a bit of shadow there. Add a bit of shadow think it would make sense. Looking back and forth between the small preview and the zoomed in version, that way I can get an accurate take on the piece as a whole instead of just the zoomed in area, which is very helpful when it comes to spotting weird areas. I mean, I will probably miss a couple of weird areas, but it would still be better than if I didn't correct those on my own. It just, yep, less likely to, well, look less weird as possible is the way to put it. And fun fact is that no matter what, someone will always find an issue with your art, no matter how correct it is. Now, a lot of times, funny story is, I was gonna say something I remember from my past where I asked for a critique of one of my pieces publicly on DeviantArt, and I had people tell me there was issues where areas where there wasn't any issues. So a lot of people had different opinions, and all of them had areas that they had a problem with, which made me feel like asking for public critique like that is just another way. It's like a little bit of a disaster. Sometimes it can help, but other times it's just different people have different opinion of what looks weird, and so it really clouds an artist's judgment. And that's why I feel like it's best to have one or two close artist buddies of yours, or even just someone who likes art or doesn't draw at all, and ask for their opinion, because it's best to have one person that you can ask for that, because if you have too many critique sources, you know, it might end up confusing you. And so I feel like that's lesson learned for me. But it's a different story if a lot of critiques are of one thing. At that point, then it's obvious that that area is wrong, and so it's more helpful that way when the feedback is consistent. But I feel like it's very easy if you have like 50 opinions, and like there's 20 different areas where people have a problem with, and it's just very confusing for the artist. And so I stopped asking for public critiques, because I myself already sort of have an idea of where I need improvement. And I feel like if you get too many mixed feedback, it just hinders the artist a little based on personal experience. So I stopped doing that. I just let people give me feedback and not ask for it, because I will know when if an area gets multiple feedback, then that area probably needs fixing. So yeah, another fun past experience was when I painted 4 fingers instead of 5. That happened. It was a slip up, of course, but yeah, I think it happened like twice. And once, the Pokemon Sonia piece that I painted, I did paint her with 5 fingers, but one of the fingers, it was behind her glasses when she was holding it up, so people, I guess it looked like 4 fingers, so I had to fix that just in case. But yeah, I feel like I make some stupid mistakes, but what can you do? Sometimes I slip up. Try to fix it right after though. Yeah. So now let's take a look on the refining that we just did. So yeah, just a little bit more cleaned up. Still not there yet, but a little better than what we had previously. And I'm just gonna go ahead and keep layering on a bit of shadow on that hip bone. And gonna put a little bit of that shadow where the cloth meets his skin. Extend the shirt silhouette. Add a bit of that beige underneath the fold, so that we can get a nice sandwich here of highlight, shadow, and highlight. Usually the highlight inside the shadow, I prefer to be a opposite tone of whatever color that is. Oh god, I don't think I explained that well, but I'm sure you guys understand what I mean by that. And yeah, I went to 3D animation in college, but we didn't really learn official terms for certain things, so I just kind of tried to make up my own words for it. I'm super envious. I don't think I would be a very efficient teacher because I tend to explain things that is without their official name. Unlike a lot of professional teachers out there, they know the official term for a lot of stuff like color theory and all that, but I don't use the term color theory. I just say contrast color and it looks good with that because it appeals to me. That's what I say. Hopefully it is still comprehensible. But yeah, right now I'm just creating a little bit of color for the inner fabric, inner lining of the jacket, and just painting some fabric folds using lasso tool to keep it nice and sharp, and also solid round brush / airbrush to help me blend. I'm gonna add a bit of highlight here. I feel like maybe I can just keep this ambiguous so I don't have to add too much detail to it. Okay. Now I have to work on that pants now. Extend the skin down a bit more. Also extend the fabric down as well. I have to go ahead and clean up those areas as I go along. As things become a bit clearer, yeah, I have to keep fixing those areas. I'm gonna flip it now. I haven't flipped it in a while, so I'm gonna flip it and see what's up. Yeah, it still looks okay. Copy. Oh, I guess it's not a big change. I'll do a bit more work before I do another step. Okay, so this is what we have. I'm happy. Merge it down. Create a new layer. I'm gonna flip it just a bit so it's easier for us to work on because it is at an angle. But I like this kind of composition. In school, my teacher called it Dutch angle. It's always a little bit tilted for dramatic effect. And he's like, don't use it too much, don't overdo it. And I end up always using it because I like the look of it. It just makes it a little more interesting to look at. I always want my art to look interesting and have a lot of details, so that your eyes have a lot of places to go. You know, that might not be for all artists, of course, but it is what I prefer. Just gonna go ahead and paint that belt shape on there. Shape that booty because I need to start refining stuff and make things look anatomical. Then more anatomical. Okay, now shading a bit of the pants. I kind of want to put a little bit of muscle impression into it. A bit of muscle highlight here, one here to highlight his muscle, slight highlight, and then one for the kneecap. I've been trying to really push more kneecaps in my pieces. I just feel like it makes the character look like they have nicer legs, so I've been trying that. And I've been using more references lately. I keep saying that, but it's true. I think references really help me improve a bit more, and I think from this point on I will be using a lot more references because I really want to give you guys that realism but fantasy at the same time. I'm gonna reduce a bit of the knee here and really contour it so that we can have a nice look at his lovely knee. Okay, now for this leg. So I'm going to add a silhouette for his other butt cheek, but I don't know if it'll work. We will see. We will always see, so it's always good to experiment. Hopefully this makes sense. Maybe I should make him have like latex pants. I'm already giving slight sheen to the pants. And sometimes I like to add a bit of pant detail by giving a bit of definition. So I would add shadow to the line. Add a line to the line like this around it to form a sort of hem texture or seam texture, and then bring the highlight down. I would do a bit of little lines, especially where there's stress points in the fabric, like this. And I even extend a bit of the fabric onto the knee a bit. Let me see if I can add a bit of highlight on that booty silhouette. Maybe it'll work. I might need to tone it down though. Another bit here. Extend that a little. That might be a bit much. I'm gonna tone it down. Tone down that highlight. Actually, hold on. Let me add a bit more shadow in that area. Okay, let me just flip this over again. Okay. Let me see if... Okay, something is weird. I'm trying to see if this will help. Maybe if I kind of repaint the background a bit to suit whatever's going on. So I'm gonna lighten the background a bit so we can contour the silhouette a bit better. And at the same time, I'm gonna be putting in some more deep shadow in some of these stress points where his leg is really like getting swallowed up by the bed sheets. So getting those deep creases. I'm going to be using the airbrush now to help me blend a bit more. And what I'll do is actually add just a bit of highlight on the outer edge, like so. So we have shadow, really a bit more shadow focusing around the leg, and then highlight over here so that maybe it feels, make the fabric feel more poofy. And a bit more shadow here too. Actually, maybe I'll just leave it like that. I'm gonna do the same for this area. I'm just gonna add a bit more shadow to the fabric below. Let's do before and after. It's a little better. Alright, back to the pants. We're just gonna do a bit more cleaning up for that, and after I think I might make the pants a little bigger. Let me just kind of do that. Actually, yes. Reduce the size of the pants flap. I'm gonna add a bit more of the belt on there. And kind of shorten the belt a bit. Extend the orange fabric. So it makes a bit more sense. We're gonna just add a bit more to the orange lining. I kind of wanna add a bit more wrinkle in there so it's not just a blank space. Actually, I don't really like that too much. I'm gonna try to see if I can do something else. I'm gonna select that area, darken that up. Let go. Something like that. And so we have the pants here. Oh, gotta fix the shirt a bit. Make sure that kind of makes sense. I'm gonna add a bit of shadow in the bottom area of the shirt. Select the pants. Add a little bit of highlight. Back to that belt there. I'm gonna add a buckle just so we have get that impression of that belt being there. And then let's add extend the... Actually, should we extend the belt? Originally, I wanted the belt to kind of flop over a bit. Let's go with that. Oh yes, I forgot. We need a little thing in the middle here of the belt. What? There we go. That's okay. The loop. And I'm gonna just kind of clean up that silhouette there a bit. Okay. Before, after. I'm gonna merge it down real quick. I'm gonna select the whole leg. And I'm gonna go Control X to cut, Control Shift V to paste. And we're just gonna make the leg a little bit longer so that it balances out his heavy torso a bit more, so that we know the character didn't skip leg days. And I'm gonna go in again to clean up. Back to the background layer. I'm going to make this part a bit lighter, like that, so that his leg silhouette can stand out more. While I'm at it, since I'm already on the background layer, I can go ahead and do just a little bit of refining. Of course, not as much as the character itself, but I'm gonna try to add a little bit more shadow to the areas where the bed sheets come into contact with the character, by just including tiny details such as folds, indentation in the bed sheet and stuff like that. Also trying to kind of go with the lighting of the character as well. Just going to keep doing that, pretty much. Adding a little bit of skin tone in there. A bit more skin tone in there. Just to help break up the super single tonedness of the bedsheet. The super bluish cool tone. Gotta add a bit of warmth in there. Extending that highlight. Add a bit of shadow where the little flap here is casting. Add a bit of shadow to where the sleeve is in contact with the sheets. And add a little highlight where the sleeve of the shirt is also on the cover. And just going to refine, add a bit more indentation. Gonna add a teeny bit of shadow here. And a bit of shadow here. With some skin tone again on the side. And I'm actually gonna include a bit of that skin tone in here as well, near the face. Including, I'm gonna zoom in here. I'm gonna include some very dark shadow near closest to the face, but I'm gonna keep it very subtle and small detail, just so you still have the feel of the heaviness of the head against the fabric without it looking too overwhelming and large. Just want to add that small little detail to really make the character's hair seem like it's on the bed sheet. Add another fold here, indentation. So we're getting some smaller detail. I'm gonna add a little bit of highlight to this one area, and just wanna add a bit of variety to the cloth fabric, adding some more ridges and folds using the highlight. I feel like that can give a bit more fabric-y feel to the whole thing. I'm gonna highlight this part right here. I will take a bit of warm tone, going to lighten, and just casually sweep up gently to add just a little bit of that gradient color. And I'm gonna do so for the part of the cloth that is supposedly in the highlight range, so like that. And auto contrast too. This is what Photoshop thinks how contrasting it should be. And do a bit of that. Also, another filter I like to play around with is color lookup. So I just kind of test out different filters to see which one I like. Some of them are quite good. This one's pretty. I usually like going for this one and merge it down. Actually, gonna go create another layer, and I want to add a bit of blueness to that side. That, and maybe a bit here too. Then I'm gonna add, oh, wait till that, normal, add a bit more, add a darker fringe around, like this, so it looks like that. Lower the opacity, merge down. And I guess I will make it a bit brighter on that side. Like that. And I'm just going to blend that in after I did that quick edit. So now the leg have an excuse to look right. Also at the same time, I'm just gonna be lazy and I will just do some very basic shading for Deku. Just gonna give him a blobby look. Darken it. And then we're just gonna blur it and forget about it. Make it a little darker. Move it a bit. So that, yeah, don't need to worry too much about that. Okay, happy with it. Merge it down. Create another layer so I can continue to refine. So we're just gonna refine the sleeve here. And let's go ahead and do a little opening here for the sleeve and 2 buttons. Let's make one. Just increase the size of that flap right there. So hopefully it feels a bit more like it's laying on the bed surface this way. And just overall some more shading. Okay, now I'm gonna see about this part right here, which is very sharp. Might need a bit of a shadow around it. So very subtly I just added some shadow around that shoulder area so it doesn't feel too abrupt against the white sheet. Same for this part. Trying to see if I can kind of add a bit more detail to the pectoral muscle. Make it a bit more subtle by lowering the opacity. Actually, I shouldn't. Yes. I'm just going to subtly erase some of this that I put down to make it a bit more subtle and merge down. Oh, hold on. Rotate now to work on the arm. Gotta make sure it is a bit cleaner. Let's work on that arm. On another layer, I'm gonna select the arm silhouette and I'm just going to clean up the silhouette pretty much. Nice and smooth. And same for that side of the arm. I'm just gonna clean up the silhouette by selecting that area. Blending them in. And darkening that up. I'm just going to add a teeny bit of shadow around the armband. Deselect, highlight, add a bit of definition to the armband. Okay, and I'm gonna add a little bit of a vein texture because your muscle usually come with a little bit of that, and just gonna blur it out with the smudge tool, our trusty smudge tool. So now it's a little bit more blended and a bit cleaner. Let me zoom out now. So overall it's definitely getting there. Still need quite a bit more refining, but it's getting there. Just going to darken that a bit. Time to add some small bit of texture to the pants. Right here, add some shadow. I'm just going to go ahead and add those belt details. Same for this side, we're just gonna continue on with that. Gonna go ahead and add a bit of shadow onto the belt. I'm just going to add a bit more highlight to it. So when it comes to metallic objects like belt buckles and stuff, a quick rule that I have is, it's pretty technical process. Basically, you squeeze a shadow between two highlights, and one of the highlight needs to be slightly brighter than the other, and it would help even more if you pick an even brighter shade and just put it in a small area inside the highlight. And sometimes you can even add some more shadow surrounding, and this way it creates a slightly shinier surface. Of course, if you zoom in, you can see all the lines, but if you zoom out, it will look like a shiny object. I'm going to put a bit of blue underneath. Let me zoom out real quick. As you can see, that's what it's looking like. Add a bit more shadow. Gonna add a little bit of shadow. to refining the pants, because pants needs a bit more refining, and also fixing, cleaning up as well. Like that. So I have a nice silhouette now. I can also, in a way, kind of trim a bit of the area. Gonna bring in the highlight over here. Now I will create another layer and just gonna contour the pants and apply shadow around and then erase in here. That way it creates a nice shiny render to the pants. And then I'm going to use dissolve and use a yellowish shade. Put it in the center to emulate that shine look. So I actually, the funny thing is I actually discovered this sort of render style from looking at this looking at a screenshot of Nier Automata 2B's black leather boots, and it looked similar to this, where there was like a diffused look, and I tried to emulate that, and I tried a few things, but the dissolve option was the best. Now at that point I didn't really use it on the skin, I only used it on leather, but yeah, I started trying it on the skin too, and it has a really nice like wet look, so I've been using that technique quite a bit now, so hopefully I don't overdo it. But yeah, I'm just going to zoom out now so you guys can see what that looks like ish. I'm going to erase bits of that. To use on another layer, use a brighter color. See if I can add a bit of sheen to the pants. I think I can. And then add a bit more. Just going to sort of refine these parts. That, so I can get a nice render. I'm gonna select outside of the leg and add some shadow behind it. There we go. Now zoom out, have a look. Yeah, it's starting to get there. Right, let's do a little bit of work on the face. I feel like I could probably do something fast and make it look a little better. First thing I'm gonna do is just to use the smudge tool to help me blend it slightly. Gonna make another layer. I'm gonna show you guys how to add a bit of sweat. So basically, with the diffuse brush again, always on airbrush mode. Just gonna casually add a bit of sheen to the skin. And after that, we're gonna erase bits of it because the soft brush is a little bit kind of unforgivable because you can't really control it too well. You can't control the opacity of it, so we have to carefully layer it on as to not go too crazy with it. I'm gonna add a little bit on the neck, and of course going back again to erase. So I think this is a good amount of sheen. We don't want to go too crazy. And of course, I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of a sweat mark. I like to do a little bit of shadow crossing the shine, and then use a lighter color and just kind of pop it into the shadow. And then I kind of want to do a bit of work with the hair. I will try this time to do that with the top of the hair. Copy paste. And just make it slightly brighter. And measure down before, after. And I'm just going to use a bit of blue. Just going to use the bit of blue and highlight the eyes on top of it. And just gonna be very subtle and add just a little bit of shadow around the eyes. So it is still a little messy. I wonder if I could kind of make the nose a little bigger. Usually for male character, maybe I should try to make the nose just a little bigger, because for female character I tend to give them smaller noses for that anime / Final Fantasy look that I always try to aim for. It's just the Asian in me. I'm so into that style. That's why. After, I guess this should be okay. Yeah, should be okay. I'm going to go for a bit of pinky tone, casually, sorry. The reason why I say casually, I meant to say softly. Softly apply a bit of blush to the ears and to the earlobe. Very softly blend that in. I feel like I struggled with ears my whole drawing career, and I've now just feel like I've gotten the hang of it. It's just one of those things on the face that I have trouble with. Same for the for hands. I think hands are my my nemesis when it comes to face, well, not face, characters, yes. And then of course there is the dreaded toes and feet, but I've been trying to paint more feet lately, so we're getting somewhere. Okay, how's that? To line the eyes a bit more. smudge down after I'm happy. I'm gonna give him a little cute little earring because I'm bored. I want him to have an earring. Okay, going down to his pants real quick. I'm just gonna give him like a bit of undie so that people won't be like, he's not wearing underpants or something. There, now he has undies. Okay, and back here I'm just going to try to blend it out a bit. It's not gonna be super detailed, but I will try to do my best to blend it out slightly, and at the same time clean up the silhouette. Here too, actually. I feel like here needs a bit more blending than that area. I will add a little bit of warm tone in, and give him a bit of, gotta put the nipple on because without it it'll look weird. I almost forgot. I think it should be here-ish. Just gotta, just have to rotate that bit more, and just gonna pop a highlight in the center and softly blend it out. Guy nipples are so easy to do, man. Because there's not much detail in it compared to female nipples, I mean. So yeah. This is how I usually paint them. Kinda lazy when it comes to them, but I spend so much time on their junk. So it's a give and take. Actually, I wonder if I should kinda... or just keep it like that. Let me rotate, reset. Let me keep it ambiguous. Okay. So, this is what we have. I hope this was educational at least. Alright guys, I'm gonna call it a day here, and don't worry, I will be doing a more refined version and a NSFW version for the male not safe for work piece of the term, but I just wanted to do a voiceover of how I proceed to work on a male not safe for work piece. And this is it. I hope it was somewhat useful to you guys. And I do know that switching it up a bit might be good as well. So yes, I guess I could do a final thing. Final touch, apply one of my favorite filters, film stock, which pretty much just intensifies the color a bit more. And of course, I probably wouldn't end it here. I'll probably kind of add some soft light around the character to make the setting a bit more realistic. But yes, this is a good start. This is a good midway. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will see you guys in the next voiceover tutorial. And have a great day, guys. Bye.